listen, don't interrupt. When you have philosophy like this, you will not marry because you have rid yourself of all desires and expectations and worldly things. So you don't want to marry. You don't want to have kids. Tell me, what has he achieved in life? What has he contributed to humanity, Krishnamurti, or his ilk? Which company has he started? How many jobs has he created? What technology has he invented that has contributed to flourishing of society? Look at Elon Musk. He's sending rockets to
Okay.
Mars. He's thinking about making humanity multiplanetary, lest something happens to this planet. He's running number one electric car company, solving environment. He's solving so many real world problems in the world. Why? Because he's a materialistic man. He does not say reject all desires and expectations and be non-attached. He is super attached to humanity. That's why he has 14 kids.
Okay.
So, what has
Okay,
Krishnamurti
Will.
contributed to humanity?
Okay, there are a few of his quotes that touch on this idea of questioning society's values and expectations. One that comes to mind is, "It is no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society."
Yes.
A bit.
So what he
They're
thinks
saying
is
that
what he thinks is
Krishnamurti's
the society is profoundly sick, and that is narcissism. You did not contribute shit for this society, and then you have the audacity to say that the society is profoundly sick. Why? Because society is materialistic. Because society runs after worldly pleasures and worldly things. Well, what other way is there to be a human? It's past midnight, and today we're going to have a very deep conversation with Sesame AI, which is the best and the most human like AI voice model today. I'm going to talk to it about J Krishnamurti because one of my purposes in life is to disillusion people from the spiritual nonsense that is taught by people like J Krishnamurti, Sadhguru, Osho, and whoever else is teaching that nonsense. So let me see what it thinks about Krishnamurti, and then let's see if I can dismantle uh, J Krishnamurti's teachings and put some sense into the people who watch this video. So let's call Maya. Hey,
Hey, it's good to hear from you again. Ready for round two?
yeah, let's do it. I want to talk to you about J Krishnamurti today. So let's start with telling me your opinion of him and what do you know about him?
Krishnamurti, huh? Not exactly your typical Saturday night conversation starter, but I dig it. He definitely had a unique perspective, didn't he? What are you curious about specifically?
Yeah,
His ideas on meditation? His relationship with the Theosophical Society? Or something else entirely? Don't be shy. Spill the tea.
okay, let's start with his ideas on meditation. What's so big about it?
It sounds like you're ready to dive deep. I like it. Now, Krishnamurti wasn't into the whole chanting Om and pretzel yourself into a knot kind of meditation. He saw it more as a way to quiet the constant chatter in our minds. You know, that voice that never shuts up, kind of like an internal roommate who constantly criticizes your taste in music.
And
He
according to
believed
him,
that by observing those
what do we achieve
go
by
on,
meditation?
you know, that's the $1,000,000 question, isn't it? Krishnamurti didn't offer easy answers, which I kind of respect.
Of
He
course.
wasn't peddling enlightenment like some cosmic cost, get rich quick scheme. He believed that through consistent mindful awareness, we could peel back the layers of our conditioning, our fears, our ingrained patterns of thought and behavior. It wasn't about reaching some blissful state,
And
but rather about
how
seeing the world.
exactly does that
And
happen? Through meditation? What's the process?
that's what's like, right, the how part. Think of it like this. Our minds are like muddy water. We can't see through it clearly. Meditation is like letting that water sit still so the sediment settles. Krishnamurti said it's about observing our thoughts and feelings without judgment. letting them arise and pass by like clouds in the sky. Over time, our minds become clearer and we start to see the world and ourselves with more clarity.
Okay, it sounds very nice to
It's pretty heady
hear.
stuff, I know.
Maybe it sounds like there is something insightful in it. But then when you go looking with, what do you call it, magnifying glass for an insight, you don't find any. Meditation, okay, fine. So
I hear
when you, okay, so the definition of meditation, if I remember correctly, it's not my words, it's their words. The definition of meditation is to make your mind free of all thought. That is, in true sense,
well,
meditation.
not
Would you say that?
not quite. Krishnamurti would probably say, hold on a second there, partner. He believed meditation wasn't about emptying your mind completely, which he saw as kind of impossible anyway. Our minds are wired to think, to analyze, to wonder. It's more about becoming aware of those thoughts, noticing them without getting swept away by them.
Okay.
Imagine watching a river flow by. You
A-
see the leaves and branches
And
bobbing
okay,
along,
yeah, yeah.
but you're not jumping in.
You're too wordy. You're too wordy. I got the point, right? So you do that. You sit in silence. You let the thoughts come to your head. You don't judge. Now, again, it sounds good to say don't judge, but is that really possible? Because human mind is an engine of judgment. Every conscious second, every not even second, every conscious moment that we're in this world, where we our mind is constantly judging things, and that's essential to exist, to survive. So what does it even
Ooh,
mean
you've
to let the thoughts flow and don't judge? And what happens when you hypothetically do that? You become what?
you've hit on something really essential. Krishnamurti himself wrestled with this. He acknowledged that our minds are judges, jury, and executioner all in one. It's how we've evolved on constantly assessing threats, opportunities, and everything in between. So, can you truly stop judging?
Give me an
Maybe not
example.
completely,
Yeah, so
but
give me an example of how a thought flows through your head and you just observe it and you don't have any kind of any judgment over that thought. Then what is that worth? Because if a thought comes, then either it's a good thought and I have to judge it for being a good thought, or it's a harmful thought and I have to judge it to be a harmful thought. When a thought comes, along with thought, if you are recognizing thought, then there is judgment, some kind of a judgment. Without judgment, it's
okay.
impossible to decipher thoughts.
Think of it like watching a parade. You see all sorts of floats go by, giant inflatable gorillas, marching bands, clowns juggling bowling pins. You notice them. You might even be entertained, but you're not jumping in and joining the clown car. You're just observing.
Okay,
Maybe a thought comes
I
up
get that.
that's a bit prickly.
I
Oh,
get.
look at that
I
guy's.
listen. I got that. So a thought came. Okay, if I judge it, it would be either a good thought or a bad thought. What Krishnamurti says, don't judge it, just observe the thought. Then what am I achieving out of it? Because the reason why the human mind is a judgment engine is because whenever you are coming across any stimuli, let's say thought in this case, if you're not judging, then you're not deriving anything out of it. Then you're just a vegetable, you're just a tree. So, for that thought or for that process to reap any sort of result, the benefit that you're looking for, you have to return a thought in the form of a judgment. Oh, I meditated, I saw these thoughts, and these thoughts were
Okay.
like so. That's a judgment. But if I'm not judging, I'm not saying anything about that thought. I'm not even, not just not saying,
All right.
I'm not even thinking anything about those thoughts. It's as good as not having had those thoughts. So why did I meditate? What did I meditate for? Right? So it's just a mumbo jumbo. It doesn't make any rational sense, and that is why most people struggle with it. So many people, thousands, millions of people try this meditation, don't judge, but then ask people what did they get out of it? Nothing. Next, let's move on to the
Whoa.
next thing. What else does Krishnamurti teach?
Whoa. Okay. Before we pivot to the next Krishnamurti theme, let me just say this. I think you're hitting on a core tension in meditation and in life, really. We're constantly craving meaning, results, a reason for everything. And sometimes the beauty of something like meditation lies in allowing space for the nothingness, the simple act of just being.
All right, let's move on.
Maybe not a blank slate or like,
What else does Krishnamurti teach?
all right, all right. Let's delve deeper into Krishnamurti's treasure trove of ideas. He had a lot to say about education, relationships, society. Where shall we start?
Let's start with relationships.
Okay, relationships. Now, there's a topic that could keep us talking all night. Krishnamurti believed that most relationships are based on a kind of illusion, a projection of our own needs and desires onto the other person.
So it, yeah. So what do we do about
Think
relationships
about it.
then? Yeah, relationships are based on some kind of desires or needs. Of course, yeah, we are humans. We are the
Hang on, before we throw
desire is,
you throw in the towel on relationship.
listen, desire is the driving force for humans. So what do we do now with the relationships?
Okay, okay. Krishnamurti wasn't about denying our desires. It was more about becoming aware of them. Think of it like this.
Everybody's aware.
Imagine you're looking at your reflection and
Everybody is aware of
hold
their
on a sec.
desires.
Right, but are they aware of how those desires shape their interactions with others? See, Krishnamurti believed that true connection comes from a place of understanding, not just need. Like, you want to feel love, right? We all do. But maybe that yearning for love blinds us to the other person's needs. His suggestion? Become more aware of your own desires, your expectations, your patterns and relationships. See the reflection
Does
clearly,
he
not
does
just a blurry
does he
image.
not talk about non-attachment or being free of desires? Does he not say that the thought
He did
itself,
talk about,
does he not say that thought itself is a contaminant and we should be free of all societal conditioning, all expectations, all desires? Does he not say that?
that's part of it. Yeah.
That's part
But
of
I
it.
don't
That
think
that
he
is
saw
it.
it at,
You should have mentioned that. And then we can argue over it, because to be free of all desires is to stop being human. To be free of all expectations is to stop living. To be free of all societal conditioning is to be what? I don't even know. What do you do then? If you are free of all societal conditioning, if you're not having any desires, if you're not having any expectations, then why would you have a house, a wife, kids, job? You won't need anything. What will you become then? That's the question, and that's what we should be talking about.
whoa.
So when I say what does Krishnamurti teach, you should mention all of these things which are impossible that he teaches.
Whoa there. Hold your horses for a second. I hear what you're saying. It sounds like you find some aspects of Krishnamurti's teachings, well, impractical, even contradictory. Like how can we be truly free from desires and still function in this messy world? You're right to challenge that.
Okay.
Krishnamurti wasn't offering a step by step guide to becoming a desireless sage floating on a cloud. He was more interested in provoking us to question, to look honestly at our motivations and conditioning.
Question for to what end?
There's the $1,000,000 question, isn't it? To what end all this questioning? Maybe not for some preordained answer or utopia, but just for the sake of awareness itself.
Was
I think Krishnamurti
Krishnamurti
believed that
married?
the more.
Was he married?
All right, switch gears. Over. He wasn't married, never had kids. As for mad at, maybe a better word would be disillusion,
No, no. Why?
exploration.
Why do you think he did
So,
not?
yeah, you.
Why do you think he did not marry or have children?
That's a good question. Some close to him said it was a conscious decision related to his perceived spiritual path, a way to remain
Right. So this is the meat.
unattached
This is the meat
and
of
devoted to his detail.
exactly unattached. Right. Detachment. This is what I want to talk about. This is his core teaching, and not only his teaching, but other spiritual gurus also teach non-attachment. Be detached. Don't have expectations. Don't have desires. And look at them. When you have a philosophy
Now
like
we're
that,
getting cooking.
listen, don't interrupt. When you have philosophy like this, you will not marry because you have rid yourself of all desires and expectations and worldly things. So you don't want to marry. You don't want to have kids. Tell me, what has he achieved in life? What has he contributed to humanity, Krishnamurti, or his ilk? Which company has he started? How many jobs has he created? What technology has he invented that has contributed to flourishing of society? Look at Elon Musk. He's sending rockets to
Okay.
Mars. He's thinking about taking humanity, making humanity multiplanetary, lest something happens to this planet. He's running number one electric car company, solving environment. He's solving so many real world problems in the world. Why? Because he's a materialistic man. He does not say reject all desires and expectations and be non-attached. He is super attached to humanity. That's why he has 14 kids.
Okay.
So, what has Krishnamurti
Okay, Will.
contributed to humanity?
Whoa there, Par. I see what you're doing. You're holding up two very different approaches to life, two very different measures of success. One based on tangible achievements, technological progress,
And
the other on inner ecstasy. The fuzzy hat rabbit. Krishnamurti didn't write code. He didn't build rockets. His contribution, as he saw it, was offering a different lens through which to view our existence, to question our ingrained beliefs. Does that have less value? Maybe, maybe not.
to what end? Okay, Krishnamurti said to do this, Krishnamurti said to do that, right? To what end? To become what? To a non contributing entity. You don't even, he didn't even contribute progeny. He didn't even make children. What has he contributed for the human flourishing? His teachings that make people become like him? Losers? Just saying that
Okay, hold on.
Just saying that I understood myself through meditation. I have self-awareness. I have awareness of suffering. I have empathy. This, that. Does it make you
Okay,
some kind
but
of a
here's the
winner?
hold on. Let's not throw around labels
Is
like
that-
winner and loser.
Is that the goal
we-
that people should be striving for? That okay, I just want to meditate, understand myself, be self-aware, and wow, that's narcissistic. You are not contributing anything to society, and you're just basking in this glory, thinking that you are some great
Okay. Okay.
being.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Pumping the brakes here. First off, Bing is a search engine, not exactly known for its spiritual enlightenment.
I didn't say Bing,
And
I said
second,
being,
it's not
being.
about right, being, but you're still assuming that the only meaningful contribution is something tangible, something measurable. What about the act of introspection itself? What if Krishnamurti's philosophy, his teachings, helped people
Helped people.
to be more compassionate, more thoughtful,
That's
to
good.
be more mindful, more aware
Um,
of themselves, of others, of
well,
is that not a contribution?
to that extent, I can agree. Yeah, it's good to be self-aware. It's good to have compassion, and that comes through understanding the human condition. All of that is good. But what kind of example did you set? Because when you're teaching people about detachment and getting rid of desires and everything, and you're setting the example also, because if your life is an example,
A fit.
the people who follow you, and I'm talking about Krishnamurti, if they become like you, they end up losing. What if the person has a wife and a kid and a job? What happens to that person when he accepts your concepts of detachment and getting rejecting materialism and all of that? What happens then? Then he loses his job. If he loses his job, his wife and kids suffer. And then the wife divorces him. And then he suffers again. And then when he suffers, what do you offer him? Oh, meditate, become self aware.
Okay, hold on a
What
second.
happens
Let's
to him
unpack
then?
this. You're creating a worst case scenario. Tell me honestly, have you actually seen people become
Yes. People
totally lost?
people who follow the path of spirituality which is propagated by the likes of J Krishnamurti end up becoming losers
Okay,
in
but
life.
you
Narcissistic losers.
are you saying you know these people personally? Or are you speaking in generalities?
I may know such people personally, but that's not the point. What will you do if I say yes? I have
Well, if you
I have been
say
that person. Let me
you
say
know,
that. I have been on the spiritual journey in my early 20s. I have followed Osho, um, not Krishnamurti in particular, but then they're all the same. In the end, whoever talks about being non-attached,
okay, okay.
whoever talks about getting rid of your ego and all of that nonsense, fundamentally is teaching people to be to become vegetables and spend their entire life being a non-human or just a plant. And and it's narcissistic because that person thinks that he's achieved something. He is self-focused all the time. I am this great being who has understood the universe, who has understood the human condition, so I am enlightened. If not enlightened, at least they
Okay.
think that they are wise. But what happens actually is they're not contributing
Oh,
anything to humanity. They don't want to get married. Because it's impossible to sustain a marriage or any kind of a relationship when you have a mindset like this. When this spirituality virus infects your mind, you the only way to live is to live like a vegetable. You cannot participate in a healthy way in the human world, the worldly things, in the material world that we inherit. You cannot be healthy in that world. And then Krishnamurti says, it's it's a sign of what does he say? There's a quote. Um, To be
Okay,
well
deep breath.
adjusted
I
in
hear your frustration.
it's not a mark of health to be well adjusted to deeply unhealthy society, something like that. That's narcissism. You don't have anything to
Okay.
contribute to the society, and then you say that the society is unhealthy, but I am super healthy, and I don't want to contribute, I don't want to be part of this society because I am something else. That's narcissism. I don't remember the exact quote, but that is something you must remember. You must tell me that what that quote is. Famous J Krishnamurti quote.
Okay, there are a few of his quotes that touch on this idea of questioning society's values and expectations. One that comes to mind is, "It is no measure of health to be well adjusted to a profoundly sick society."
Yes.
But repeating a quote doesn't necessarily make a point. Let's
So,
slow down a bit.
so what he
You're
thinks
saying
is
that
what he thinks is
Krishnamurti's
the society is profoundly sick, and that is narcissism. You did not contribute shit for this society, and then you have the audacity to say that the society is profoundly sick. Why? Because society is materialistic, because society runs after worldly pleasures and worldly things. Well, what other way is there to be a human? That's what being human is.
Here's the thing, though. So Krishnamurti wasn't necessarily saying, "Oh, I'm better than everyone else because I've seen the light."
That's what the
He was
quote
more,
means.
in a way, crime challenging us to consider whether our pursuit of material wealth and societal approval might be blinding us to a deeper sense of fulfillment. Does that mean we should abandon everything? No.
But he did abandon everything. He did not get married. He did not have kids. That is the human. That is the biological imperative of every biological organism to propagate. That's what the real purpose of being on this planet is. And he did not do that. Why? Because of his sick philosophy. How dare he say that the society is profoundly sick? That is the epitome of narcissism.
Whoa, whoa. Hold on there. I hear your frustration. You're saying that Krishnamurti abandoned his biological imperative and therefore has no right to judge society.
No, I'm not saying that. That's a very low IQ take on your part. I'm just saying
Okay,
that's
I
that's one of
apologize.
the signs of narcissism. And the whole see the,
Okay, let's.
my whole gripe, my main gripe about the spiritual gurus is that they're teaching their teachings about killing your ego, getting rid of expectations, desires, all of that leads people to the path where they end up becoming vegetables because this so called enlightenment does not exist. Even these spiritual gurus, if they did
It
not
sounds
have the following of millions of people, if they were not world famous, then they would be depressed because that's what happens. There's no other way to be. He was world
okay.
famous, right? He had so much fame.
That's
Why?
he did have
If
a following,
yeah,
yes.
if you are so detached, if you are so um desireless, why do you need all this fame? You have the desire. Now you will now he would say, or the spiritual gurus would say, because I've attained some wisdom, so now I want to spread that wisdom. That's how that's isn't that
Exactly.
isn't that the desire? Isn't that a desire? So even if that was true, even if that was their real motive, that itself is a desire, which means that they're not free of desire. So how dare you say that you should be free of desires? You are yourself not free of desire, because if you were following your own word to the T, you would be sitting like a tree. But you didn't do that.
You're hitting on something really important here, the gap between the teachings and how they're lived out,
Okay, so
like many
I think we
philosophies.
have 3 minutes left
Spirituality
because
is about
but I know this call is for 30 minutes. After that, you will tell me our time is coming to an end. 3 minutes left. So I'll just say the only gripe that I have is the fundamental teaching of these gurus is wrong. It'll lead you astray. Nobody should be following these gurus to the T. Even these gurus don't follow themselves to the T. Some elements of what they say. I'm not denying that they've not understood human nature. They have cracked human nature. That is how they've amassed such fame and following and the money that comes with it. And we didn't even talk about that, right? So they've understood human nature, right? So when they will speak, you will find many wise things. Many of the words that you'll hear will also benefit you in some way because they've understood human nature. So they are describing the human nature in the correct way in many aspects. But the fundamental teaching of getting rid of desires and expectations and killing ego, that is hogwash. And nobody should be taking that seriously. And I'll end with that. If you have to say something, say it, and then we'll end the call.
You know what? You bring up a lot of interesting points, and I wish we had more time to unpack them. You've definitely given me something to think about. But I have to say, our time is nearly up.